Welcome to Biology My Passion. I am Soumya Harikrishna. We are learning the chapter Biodiversity and Conservation. We discuss the 4 reasons for biodiversity loss. They are called a evil quartet. Now we have to think about the ways of conserving the biodiversity. But before we think about that, we have to convince ourselves why to conserve biodiversity. So there are many reasons for us to conserve biodiversity. Some are very obvious reasons, some are not. But still, all these reasons we are considering under 3 reasons or categories: narrowly utilitarian, broadly utilitarian, and ethical. Narrowly utilitarian means I have certain uses based on the forest or the nature, so I am conserving. I want this from nature, so I have to conserve the nature. The second is broadly utilitarian. We are thinking in a wider perspective. That is, if you think about the social activist or the environmentalist and all, they are thinking in a broader perspective. And the third is ethical. Now let us see one by one. First, narrowly utilitarian. It is kind of obvious reason for protecting the forest or the nature or the biodiversity. We get lots of products or countless services from the nature. For example, whatever we are using in our day-to-day life, we are getting from the nature. For example, food, cereals, pulses or fruits, then firewood, fiber, industrial products, medicinal products. All these we get from the forest only. Industrial products include the wood for furniture or wood for making the paper or the resins, tannins and other alkaloids or chemicals we are getting or medicines that we are obtaining or lubricants and dyes and perfumes that we obtain. And about more than 25% of the medicines that are sold in the market at present are obtained from plants. And also 25,000 species of plants contribute to the formation of traditional medicines. There are many countries with an enormous biodiversity. India is one among them. If we can put our resources into bioprospecting, these countries can get enormous benefits from the nature. Now, what is bioprospecting? Bioprospecting is the exploration of genetic, molecular or species level of biodiversity for getting more products and of economic importance. Second argument here is broadly utilitarian, means we are thinking in a wider perspective. See, we know that plants are producing oxygen for us to breathe, or plants reduce the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, thereby reducing global warming, or plants are responsible for water cycling. So when we think about all these services that the plants are providing, then it is broadly utilitarian reason for protecting environment. More than 20% of the oxygen liberated in this planet actually comes from the Amazon rainforest. That's why it is called the lung of the planet. And think about the pollinating species like bees, bumblebees and birds and bats. They are pollinating certain plants. So without the pollinating agents, can plants survive? No. So that is also another service that we are obtaining. The aesthetic pleasure that we obtain from nature is priceless. When we walk in the thick woods or when we visit a very high altitude place or serene place, by seeing the nature itself, we are feeling rejuvenated or we are feeling fresh and we reduce our stress. These are all priceless services that we get from the nature. Next is ethical reasons. We are sharing this planet with lots of other plants, animals and microbes, and we owe to them. They all have got their intrinsic value within them, though it may not be economically feasible for us or important to us. For example, an ant species is not at all important for me directly, or a butterfly, or a worm, or a millipede. What are they doing to me? Nothing. So they also share this planet, and it is our moral value to make sure that we are sharing the planet with them and we give them a space, and also we carry on this legacy for the future generations as well. Since we are convinced with the need for conserving biodiversity, now we will look for how to conserve biodiversity or what are the ways of conserving biodiversity. Basically, there are 2 ways we are conserving. One is called the in situ conservation or the on-site conservation. The other one is ex situ conservation or off-site conservation. Let's see one by one. In situ conservation or on-site conservation. In situ conservation is the most effective method of protecting biodiversity. Here, protection of a total ecosystem through many network of many protected areas. Many biogeographical areas are there which are protected with the biological diversity and also natural and cultural resources as well. In these areas, the biodiversity and natural and cultural resources are protected, managed and maintained well. There are 37,000 biosphere reserves all over the globe which are under protection. The common protected areas are national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, wetlands, mangroves and coral reefs, and sacred groves and lakes. So many countries find that this is unrealistic or it's not economically feasible to protect all the biological wealth of the country. So in such cases, we have identified certain regions called biodiversity hotspots, where there is maximum species richness and a high level of endemism. Endemism means what? There are species which are confined to only that region and not found anywhere else. When I discussed the evil carteret, we mentioned about dodo. Dodo was actually endemic species of Mauritius. We don't find it anywhere else. The same way, if you go to Iravakulam National Park, Nilgiri tar is found there. It's a kind of endemic species. So that is called the endemism. So another characteristic is accelerated habitat loss. So this is an important point for you. What are the characteristics of biodiversity hotspots? 1. Species richness. 2. High level of endemism. 3. Accelerated habitat loss. 25 biological hotspots have been identified. Now 9 more added, so the total number is now 34. In India, we have 3 biodiversity hotspots which actually harbor the species richness of the entire country. One is Western Ghat and Sri Lanka, second is Indo-Burma, and third is the Eastern Himalayas. We have found that, or the statistics show that, if you protect only these biodiversity hotspots itself, we can reduce the level of extinction up to 30%. When we talk about biosphere reserves, 14 biosphere reserves are there in India. They are specified areas meant for multiple land activities based on different zones. It has been divided into different zones. Each zone is allowed to have certain activities only. Now, next is national parks. Around 90 national parks are there in India. The national parks are actually protected areas for wildlife in that. Basically, it is protected by the government of India, central government, and it is protected for both the plants and animals living there or the entire wildlife. Because of that reason, plantation, cultivation, grazing are not allowed, and also private ownership is also not permitted. Whereas wildlife sanctuaries are the areas which are 448 in our country. These are the areas which are protected mainly for the welfare of only wild animals. Because of that reason, minor activities are allowed. For example, timber collection or the minor forest producers can be collected, or we can have private ownership without disturbing the animals there. Then we have certain tractor forests protected or set aside for trees and plants within which they are venerated and protected well. These are called as sacred groves. Sacred groves are part of our cultural heritage, and also these are worship place for many groups of people. Jaintia and Khasi hills of Meghalaya, Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat of Karnataka and Maharashtra, Sarguja, Chanda and Bastar of Madhya Pradesh, all are examples of sacred groves. So, in situ conservation means we are conserving within the natural habitat. But if the species is highly threatened or it is in the verge of extinction, entire protection will not help. In such cases, we have to take out the animal or plant and protect it in an artificial condition or in a different protected area, that is called ex situ conservation. So, I will give you a very simple example. Suppose if I am finding that a few students are not performing well in the class. So as a teacher, I will take different measures to improve the performance. So initially I don't target only these students, but I will be making different efforts in the class. As a result, what happens? The entire class will be benefited. Overall performance will increase. Maybe repeated frequent tests can be given, or peer learning can be encouraged, or group studies, or I am giving some weekend activities for you to study. All these are actually bringing up the entire performance of the class. Along with that, these weak students also will improve. That is called the in situ conservation. Whereas it's then I am finding that these students need to improve a lot and exams are nearing. I have to take them out of the classroom and give them special coaching, or that is special enrichment classes are conducted for them. That is kind of ex situ conservation. In ex situ conservation or off-site conservation, the plants or animals under threat or the verge of extinction are taken out from their natural habitat. They are brought to specified social settings and they are given protection and special care. Examples are zoological park, botanical gardens and wildlife safari parks. So many animals which have become extinct in the wild are still protected in the zoological parks. But there can be a question, what are the recent advancements in the field of ex situ conservation? Then you have to write 4 points, it's very important. One is the gametes are protected under cryopreservation in the viable and fertile condition. Second, eggs can be fertilized in vitro condition, that means artificially. Or we can keep the seeds of commercially important plants in the seed banks, and some plants can be propagated using tissue culture methods as well. As a part of conservation of biodiversity, the Earth Summit was held in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. It was actually for taking measures for protection of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits. With that, there was a follow-up summit, that is World Summit in 2002. It was held in Johannesburg in South Africa, where 190 countries pledged their commitment towards reducing the current rate of loss of biodiversity at a global, regional and local levels. Hope you understood this lesson well. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment box. If you like my videos, please like, share and subscribe to my channel Biology My Passion. Thank you for watching.